Firefly Studios has been on a roll for the past couple of years, with the excellent definitive editions of Stronghold 1 and Stronghold Crusader. They've taken that momentum and turned it into the first brand new mainline entry in 15 years. Stronghold 4 is launching into early access later this year, and ahead of the public demo on June 23rd, I got the chance to play it early. Now, Firefly hasn't exactly had a great track record when it comes to their 3D titles, as none of them managed to capture the magic of their early work. So the big question is, can Stronghold 4 finally break that curse? After spending some time with the demo, here's what I think. The first thing that immediately becomes clear is that this is still the classic Stronghold formula we've come to know and love. If you've played any of the other titles, you'll feel right at home. You gather resources, build up your economy and defenses, and battle it out with enemy lords. What always set Stronghold apart from other RTS games for me though, was the attention paid to the little details, and that's still true here. Workers go about their daily routines, moving goods across your settlement. Animals roam the land freely, and mothers hold their babies when you plop down a hovel. You'll love to see it. The game also brings back the honor system from Stronghold 2, although in a slightly leaner form. Personally, I think that's for the best. The constant cycle of shoveling poop and chasing thieves never added much to the experience for me, so streamlining the mechanic feels like the right decision. Honor is gained passively by upgrading your houses, starting from hovels and ending with mansions. You also gain it by gathering luxury goods and having banquets. I like this a lot, because as good as Stronghold 1 and Crusader were, they could have benefited from more production chains and building variety. The housing progression has another benefit as well. Your settlements naturally become more visually diverse over time. Rather than filling your castle with rows of almost identical houses, you end up with a mixture of different housing types that makes your town feel more organic and lived in. Building your castle is as enjoyable as ever. There are plenty of walls, towers and defensive structures to play around with, including wooden fortifications, which I'm very happy to see return. Buildings also connect nicely with walls and neighboring structures, so your castle doesn't feel like a bunch of separate pieces thrown together. Interiors are back too. Hovering over buildings lets you see inside. You can't look inside keeps or towers just yet, but as it stands, it feels like a nice middle ground between Stronghold 1 and Stronghold 2. Combat also shows a lot of promise. One of the biggest changes from previous games is the introduction of unit collision, which means choke points actually matter in a way they never really did before. It opens up a lot more tactical opportunities when it comes to defending castles and holding narrow passages. I also really like that when you select a unit, you can actually see its stats like armor, health and damage. In older Stronghold games, this was always trial and error, so having clear information like this is a welcome change. Weather also plays a role in combat. Rain can prevent archers from lighting pitch and reduces their effectiveness at range. It's a small detail, but it adds another layer to battles without overcomplicating the core mechanics. When it comes to the presentation, Stronghold 4 isn't exactly pushing Unreal Engine to its limits, but it's a noticeable step forward for the series. I think the environments have seen the biggest improvement. Stronghold 2 always had fairly flat terrain and repetitive grass textures. Here the environments feel much more alive thanks to the added foliage, elevation changes and improved lighting. The water looks great as well. It's not the prettiest RTS on the market, but it's the first 3D Stronghold game that doesn't feel like it's a decade behind the competition. The game's relatively modest visuals do have an upside: performance. I've got a 3060 Ti, 16 gigs of RAM and a Ryzen 5600G, and the game consistently stayed above 60 FPS on the highest settings. That's always nice to see, especially given the state of optimization in a lot of modern Unreal Engine titles. Lastly, I want to mention the soundtrack. Series mainstay Robert L. Uvino returns as composer, and from what I've heard so far, he's still got it. I've already heard a few familiar themes make a return, alongside some new material, and I can't wait to hear the full score. When you take all of that together, this is what's left me feeling optimistic. Stronghold 4 isn't trying to reinvent the series, but rather make small changes to a formula that already works. To me, it feels like Firefly understands what made Stronghold special in the first place. But if you've read the title of this video, you know what's coming next. This game really needs some more time in the oven. I'm glad Firefly is taking the early access approach, so they can take in feedback and make this the best Stronghold game it can be. My biggest concern is the AI and pathfinding. During my short time with the demo, I encountered numerous pathfinding issues, like stone miners refusing to deliver their goods, or enemy catapults getting stuck at the base of a mountain. At times, enemy troops would just stand still while being bombarded by ballista and arrows, or they'd all move together with the slowest unit. These are all things that have plagued the series since day one, and I'm afraid this isn't just a result of early access. Firefly really needs to address this. I do think the other issues I mentioned from this point forward are things that can be addressed in the coming months, which does keep me optimistic. In one of the missions, almost all of the audio except for music was missing. It really lessened the impact of combat. It seems like an easy fix though. Animations still need a lot of work. The basics are solid, but there are barely any transitions between animations, so everything feels quite stiff. I think the game will feel a lot better and more immersive if Firefly can nail this part. Now, this is personal taste, but I really don't like the look of the UI. It has this cheap feel to it, and compared to the classics, it feels like a step backwards. I mitigated this somewhat by scaling the UI down so it doesn't take up too much screen space. I'm aware this could just be a placeholder, since these things can change late in development, but I really hope they give it another pass. And while we're talking about readability, buildings and units need a bit more distinction. Ideally, you should be able to tell what something is at a quick glance. This wasn't always the case for me, especially with buildings, which tend to look quite blocky and square. I like that they've gone for a grid-based system, but not everything should look like a rectangle. Finally, I want to mention the cutscenes. I like that we're getting them, but the one in the demo looks quite flat. It mostly comes down to the facial shading. There should be shadows under the helmets and hoods, but they just aren't there. I did read that this scene was made specifically for the demo, so maybe less time was spent on it. The cinematic shots from the trailer did look a lot better, so I'm curious to see how it will look in the final release. There are still a few questions I have going forward, mostly because the demo only shows a small part of the full game. One of the biggest unknowns is this Villages tab in the UI. In the demo it's grayed out, so it's not clear how it will work yet. Will this be similar to the estates from Stronghold 2 or the vassals from Warlords? We've also only seen a small glimpse of castle sieging, as the Engineers Guild wasn't available in the demo. That's something I'll definitely be keeping an eye on going forward. Right now, buildings only rotate in 90-degree increments. I do hope Firefly adds a 45-degree option, so things like gatehouses can better align with angled walls, and overall make settlements feel a bit more organic. The early access timeline is another thing I'll be watching. It's currently set at around 6 months, but I wonder if that will be extended depending on how development goes. There are also a few world simulation details I'm interested in. Things like whether trees will eventually grow back after being cut down, and how far systems like day and night cycles will go. I also saw mention of weather effects like snow affecting crops, which would be an awesome addition. Then there's the event system. Right now it feels like events trigger quite often without having a huge impact, but that might just be the demo. Personally, I'd rather see fewer events but with more meaningful effects, like in the older games. And finally, there's the broader direction of the game. How will the story develop? We know it's a prequel, and the original Stronghold had a lot of charm in its campaign. Hopefully this one can capture some of that again. So yeah, those are my impressions of Stronghold 4 so far. Overall, the game seems to get the essentials right. My biggest question going forward is how the AI and pathfinding will evolve. That's the one area that could really make or break the experience. Everything else feels like it has room to improve over time. The foundation is promising, but it definitely needs a lot of polish. I'll definitely be keeping a close eye on this game throughout early access and up to release. If you found this video helpful at all, consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. A massive shout out to my Patreons for making videos like this possible. If you'd like to support the channel as well, the link is down in the description. Alright, that's it from me. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace!
The people love you, my